You were born with real magic, but the world convinced you it wasn't real. They called it imagination. They told you to grow up, be realistic, stop dreaming. But deep down, you always knew there was something more, something powerful, invisible, just beneath the surface of what everyone else could see. You felt it before, that strange electric charge in the air, the warmth in your chest when you hold someone you love, the way time bends when you're fully present. That's not fantasy, that's energy. And energy is magic. The truth is, you never lost your magic. You were simply trained to forget it, conditioned to believe that what couldn't be measured didn't exist. But the ancients knew better. Long before science, long before modern life, they spoke of this energy as the life force, the breath of the cosmos. And that energy, it's still inside you, still alive, still waiting to be awakened. From the moment you could speak, they began building walls around your wonder, not to protect you, but to contain you. Magic was dismissed as fiction, reserved for fairy tales, cartoons, and fantasy novels. It was painted as something outside of you, something unattainable, something that could never be real. And so, over time, you stopped looking for it. You stopped trusting the sensations you couldn't explain, the moments of deep presence, the chills that ran down your spine when someone stared at you from across a room, the way a single breath could change your entire state of being. They called it coincidence. They called it imagination. But it was never imaginary. It was always your power trying to reach you through the noise. The system didn't erase magic. It distorted it, made it entertainment so you'd never believe it was something you could actually touch. Magic became wizards and sparkles and spell books. But real magic is silent. It hums beneath your skin. It vibrates in your breath. It's in the connection between you and the world when you're fully alive. That is the force they don't want you to remember, because if you do, they lose control. Real magic is personal. It's sovereign. It makes you ungovernable. And deep down, you've always known. That's why you've never been satisfied with the life they told you to live. That nagging sense that something's missing, that's not depression. That's your soul trying to wake you up. You were meant to feel more, see more, be more. And magic, your magic, is the key. That subtle feeling you get when someone enters the room before you see them. That's energy. When your heart aches with someone else's pain or lights up in their joy, that's energy too. These aren't random feelings. They are evidence of the unseen world you've been taught to ignore. But the ancients didn't ignore it. They studied it. They wrote it down. They passed it on in whispers and scrolls and sacred texts because they knew the greatest power is the one that can't be controlled by force, only by forgetting. You were taught to trust only what you could touch, weigh, or buy. But real power doesn't come with a price tag. It comes with presence, with stillness, with remembering. That's why every system you've been raised in, from school to media to religion, trained you to look outside yourself for answers, to obey, to consume, to seek validation. Because if you ever turned inward, if you ever really looked, you'd see it. The flame they buried, the power they fear, the magic within. And some truths are too powerful and too ancient to share here. That's why we've hidden the real teachings inside our free newsletter, Insights Academy. Tap the link in the description to get exclusive access and receive the Kybalion ebook before it disappears. This isn't about superstition. This is about energy. And energy is real. You can't see gravity, but you trust it. You can't hold sound in your hands, but it moves your emotions. Magic is no different. It's simply energy, mastered, directed, felt. And when you understand how to feel it, work with it, and trust it, your life begins to change in ways logic can't explain. Synchronicities increase. Time feels different. You find yourself thinking of someone just before they call. You speak things and they begin to manifest. This is not fantasy. It's alignment. It's resonance. It's the natural intelligence of the universe working through you, with you, because of you. They lied to you about magic. Because they had to. Because a person who remembers their magic can't be controlled. And if enough people wake up to what's been dormant within them, everything changes. That's the real secret. Not to cast spells or bend reality with your will, but to remember that reality is already bending to the energy you carry. And it always has been. You've felt it before, you just didn't have the language for it. The goosebumps rising on your arms when you walk into a room full of tension. The invisible pull you feel towards certain people, places, or moments, like they're vibrating on your exact wavelength. The way music can move you to tears without a single word. None of that is random. It's all energy. And once you understand that, everything changes. Energy isn't some abstract spiritual concept. It's the foundation of everything. Science confirms it. Spirituality embodies it. At the deepest level, all matter, all thought, all experience is vibration. Your body isn't just a shell, it's a field of energy, constantly receiving, emitting, and shifting. Your emotions aren't just passing moods, they're frequencies. Your thoughts aren't just ideas, they're currents shaping your field. You've been taught to see yourself as a physical being, occasionally having spiritual experiences. But it's the other way around. You are energy first, always have been. And energy, when consciously directed, is what the ancients called magic. You see, magic isn't about breaking the rules of nature. It's about understanding them more deeply than the average person ever dares to. It's about tuning into the flow of energy that moves through everything and learning how to move with it. That's what real magic is. It's not about tricks, illusions, or rituals performed for show. It's about alignment. It's about presence. It's about intention shaping vibration, and vibration shaping reality. Because energy responds to attention. Where your focus goes, energy flows. And what you repeatedly focus on becomes your experience. The mystics knew this long before modern physics could measure it. They didn't have particle accelerators, but they had stillness, silence, sensitivity. They felt what modern life has numbed us to, the subtle current beneath the noise. And through that current, they accessed power beyond comprehension. That's why you'll find nearly every ancient tradition, whether it's the yogis of India, the Taoist sages of China, or the Hermetic philosophers of Egypt, pointing to the same truth. Energy is the fabric of everything. And when you master your energy, you master your life. You don't need to become someone new to access it. You just need to remember what you are. A being of energy, a field of living light, awareness, and power. That's why you can walk into a space and feel drained or charged without saying a word. That's why some people lift you just by being near them, while others leave you feeling heavy. That's why your body reacts to thoughts, to people, to environments, even when your mind doesn't understand why. Energy speaks before words ever do. And the more aware you become of your energy, the more you begin to notice how much of your life is shaped by unconscious patterns, by thoughts that aren't yours, emotions you've absorbed, beliefs you've inherited but never questioned. That's the first glimpse of magic, the realization that you are not fixed, you are frequency, and you can shift right now. Think about how we speak. That person has a good vibe. This place feels off. We use energetic language all the time without realizing its truth. Vibration is the root of communication. Before words, there's tone. Before actions, there's intention. Magic isn't the manipulation of matter. It's the art of directing vibration. That's why your thoughts, your breath, your focus, they're not just habits. They are tools, rituals of attention that either empower you or deplete you. And when you begin to choose them deliberately, you begin to unlock the life that's been waiting for you beneath the noise. Because here's the secret they never taught you in school. Everything is energy, and energy is magic. Your body is energy. Your emotions are energy. Your ideas, your intuition, your breath, it's all energy. And that means it's all magic. Not metaphorically, literally. The only reason it doesn't feel magical is because you've been taught to see it as mundane. But the moment you shift your perception, The moment you stop dismissing those subtle sensations and start honoring them as messages, you step into a different kind of life. A life where you don't just survive, you create, you align, you become. Beneath the noise of thought, beyond the chatter of the mind, there is a place inside you that burns quietly, patiently. You felt it flicker during moments of stillness, when you close your eyes and feel a subtle warmth in your chest, when time slows and your breath deepens, when life suddenly feels more real than it did just a moment before. That warmth isn't symbolic. It's not just a poetic way to describe emotion. It's something ancient and real, the flame at the center of your being. The Emerald Tablets called it the hidden flame, the place where power, knowledge, and transformation reside. Thoth, the sage, the alchemist, the master of inner magic, wrote that the path to power is not found in the outer world, but in the heart of the flame. He didn't mean metaphorical passion or romantic longing. He meant the literal, energetic center within you, the core from which your consciousness radiates. It's the pulse behind your awareness, the living spark of creation embedded in your being. In the East, the yogic traditions spoke of this same center. They called it the Anahata, the heart chakra, not just the seat of love, but the bridge between the material and the spiritual. Above it lies vision, clarity, and insight. Below it, grounding, survival, and physical sensation. And right in the middle, your center, is this radiant point of balance. When this energy center is alive, you feel it. Peace, presence, inner knowing. When it's blocked, life feels mechanical, dimmed, disconnected. Modern science can't dissect it, but you don't need a microscope to feel it. All it takes is your presence. All it takes is a breath. When you tune into this space, not just as an idea, but as an experience, you begin to realize that the magic you've been seeking isn't outside of you. It's not in rituals, crystals, or symbols. It's here, right now, quiet, waiting. The heart flame is the point of origin. It's the part of you that remembers. It doesn't think in words. It doesn't argue or justify. It just knows. And when you connect to it, even for a few moments, life begins to realign. You feel more anchored, more clear, more powerful, not because of anything you're doing, but because you've returned to the truth of what you are. And this flame is not static. It grows as you give it attention. Like a fire, it needs fuel. And that fuel is your breath, your awareness, your willingness to be still. Every time you turn your focus inward instead of outward, you stoke the flame. Every time you choose presence over distraction, you strengthen it. Every moment you trust your intuition over someone else's noise, it expands. This is the flame that sages devoted their lives to protecting, not because it was fragile, but because it was sacred. It is the source of your vision, your clarity, your purpose. It's why true transformation never begins with more knowledge. It begins with coming home to your center. You can learn 1,000 systems, read 100 books, and chant every mantra in existence. But if you haven't touched this flame, you're still looking from the outside in. And maybe, for a long time, you didn't know how to access it. Or maybe you did once, and life pulled you away. That's okay. The flame never leaves. It doesn't dim out of punishment. It dims out of protection. But the moment you return, it remembers you, and you remember yourself. Not the version of you shaped by conditioning, fear, or performance, but the original you, the radiant you, the real you. This is where your magic lives, not in doing more, achieving more, or becoming someone else, but in slowing down enough to feel the light that's already there, the one that never needed permission to exist, only your presence to rise. Long before science split the atom or mapped the human genome, there were those who understood the architecture of reality, not through machines, but through consciousness. They weren't guessing. They weren't fantasizing. They were documenting what they experienced when they turned inward and moved beyond the limits of the physical senses. Thoth, Patanjali, the Tantric sages. Their names echo through ancient time, not because of legend, but because of what they knew. They were map makers of the unseen, guardians of truth so potent, it had to be cloaked in symbols, parables, and riddles to survive. You've been taught to read these teachings as myth, metaphor, or mysticism, but they weren't speaking in riddles to entertain, they were protecting what matters. Real power has always required real responsibility, and the flame that burns within you, they all spoke of it. Across continents and cultures, they pointed to the same thing, the human being as a vessel of divine energy, a portal between realms, a spark of the infinite that could, with the right intention and alignment, awaken and change the very fabric of existence. Thoth, the Atlantean priest-king, left behind the emerald tablets, texts written in a symbolic language that speaks directly to the subconscious. In them, he speaks of the 7 lords who govern the planes of reality, of the hidden flame within, and of the path to mastery through inner light. Wouldst thou gain knowledge of power? Seek ye it in the heart of the flame, he wrote. This isn't poetic language, it's an instruction. He wasn't guiding people toward external magic. He was telling you where to look, within, always within. The Library of Tantra, one of the most profound and practical manuals of consciousness ever written, offers 112 techniques to access this same inner power. These aren't rituals for the elite or abstract ideas. They're invitations to explore the subtle layers of perception available to you right now. Techniques like watching the breath, listening to sound, gazing at the space between thoughts. Simple, profound acts that lead to extraordinary states of awareness. In this text, Shiva whispers to his consort Devi the secrets of energy, presence, and transcendence, not through dogma, but through direct experience. The Tantra doesn't ask you to believe, it asks you to feel. Then there are the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, a philosophical blueprint for personal transformation. Patanjali didn't speak of yoga as physical exercise. To him, yoga was the stilling of the mind, the union of the individual with the infinite. He described siddhis, supernatural abilities, as natural byproducts of focused attention and mastery over energy, levitation, telepathy, heightened perception, not fiction, not fantasy. Side effects of tuning your awareness into alignment with universal law. He wasn't promising magic tricks. He was describing the consequences of presence. These weren't isolated thinkers. They were tapping into the same current, the same knowing, the same source. What they offered wasn't religion or belief, it was access, a way to activate the dormant capacities within you, capacities that have been ridiculed, suppressed, or twisted into entertainment, because their real form is threatening to the systems built on your disempowerment. If people begin to truly understand what these teachings offer, they become difficult to govern, harder to manipulate, impossible to control. Because someone who can feel their own energy doesn't need permission to exist. Someone who can tune into their own intuition doesn't require validation from an outside authority. Someone who has touched the flame within isn't afraid of darkness, because they know the light is not something they need to search for, it's something they are. The sacred texts don't want you to worship the flame, they want you to ignite it. They were never trying to lead you to a god outside yourself. They were always pointing back to the sacred center within you, not to inflate your ego, but to remind you of your essence. They knew that remembering this truth doesn't make you superior, it makes you responsible, and in that responsibility lies freedom. The power you've been seeking doesn't need to be found, it needs to be felt. And the ancient ones left us the keys, not locked in temples, but encoded in breath, stillness, and the space between thoughts. The question isn't whether the magic is real. The question is whether you're ready to feel it. You were never taught to feel your own energy. You were taught to fear it, dismiss it, ignore it. And the tragedy is, it didn't happen all at once. It happened so subtly, so gradually, that by the time you noticed something was missing, you didn't even know what it was. From your earliest years, The world around you told you where your attention should go. Outward, toward rules, toward expectations, toward achievements and appearances. Your body became something to be judged. Your thoughts became something to suppress. Your emotions became something to hide. And your energy, your subtle sacred power, was never even mentioned. They replaced your intuition with instruction. Instead of asking you how you felt, they told you how you should feel. Instead of encouraging you to follow your inner current, they handed you a map that led everywhere but back to yourself. You were told to sit still when your body wanted to move, to stay quiet when your truth wanted to speak, to conform when your soul wanted to expand. And every time you obeyed, a piece of your magic dimmed, not because it was gone, but because it was buried under someone else's version of who you were supposed to be. It wasn't just school, though. That was a big part of it. It was the whole ecosystem: education, media, religion, even well-meaning family structures, all reinforcing the same core message: trust the system more than yourself. Trust the teacher, trust the test, trust the textbook, but not your body, not your breath, not your knowing. And the system didn't do this because it was evil. It did it because it runs on predictability, on obedience, on keeping you just disconnected enough to follow the script, but not so disconnected that you break down. You were shaped to function, not to flourish. That's why when you started to feel things, real things, you questioned yourself. The chills, the tingling, the weight in your chest when something didn't feel right, the rush of lightness when something deeply resonated. You chalked it up to nerves, to mood swings, to overthinking, because no one ever told you the truth, that these sensations are messages, that your energy system is speaking to you all the time. But in a world that profits from your disconnection, your ability to listen is dangerous. And even now, part of you still second guesses what you know. You feel something and immediately look for a reason to explain it away. You get an intuitive nudge and silence it with logic. You have a dream that shakes you, but by morning, you've convinced yourself it was random. That's not your fault. That's conditioning. A lifetime of being rewarded for ignoring your inner world and praised for performing in the outer one. A lifetime of being told to trade magic for metrics, feeling for formulas, presence for productivity. But the truth never stopped speaking. Even under all the noise, it's been there, quietly guiding you, patiently waiting for you to remember. That resistance you feel when you try to meditate, that's not failure. That's just years of distraction rising to the surface. That discomfort when you sit in stillness, that's not emptiness. That's your system detoxing from noise. They didn't just train you to forget your magic. They trained you to feel uncomfortable in the very space where it lives. Because when you remember how to feel your energy, you stop needing permission to live fully. You stop outsourcing your decisions. You start to trust your body, your senses, your gut. And that kind of self-trust can't be marketed, monetized, or managed. It makes you unpredictable. It makes you powerful. It makes you real. So of course they trained you to doubt it. But here's the thing, what's been suppressed isn't lost. It's just waiting. Every intuitive whisper, every surge of energy, every quiet knowing is your flame flickering back to life. And the more you let yourself feel it, really feel it, the more impossible it becomes to unfeel. That's when everything starts to change. Not because someone gave you new answers, but because you finally stopped asking for them outside yourself. It's not enough to know the flame exists. You have to feel it. You have to light it. Not once, but every day. Because the world will keep pulling you away, into noise, into urgency, into roles you were never meant to play. Awakening to your energy isn't a one-time realization. It's a practice, a remembering, a quiet rebellion against everything that taught you to live from the outside in. This isn't about rituals that require candles and crystals and chanting in languages you don't understand. You don't need more performance. You need presence. Energy doesn't respond to theatrics. It responds to sincerity. And the tools for activating your inner power aren't complicated. They're simple, ancient, and wildly effective. But they only work if you show up, not as someone trying to become enlightened, but as someone willing to feel. Start with your breath. Not the automatic breath that keeps you alive, but the conscious breath that brings you home. When you slow it down, when you feel it enter and leave your body, something shifts. Thought quiets, the nervous system relaxes, and your awareness begins to return to its rightful place, not scattered in 1,000 worries, but centered in your body, in this moment, in the now. This is why breathwork exists, not to calm you down, but to wake you up. Alternate nostril breathing, known as Nadi Shodhana, is one of the most powerful techniques you can use. It balances your energy channels, clears the static, and harmonizes the left and right hemispheres of your brain. After just a few minutes, you'll notice the change, clarity, calm, and a strange sense of inner order that feels both familiar and ancient. Not because you've done something mystical, but because you've returned to the rhythm of your own being, and the flame responds to rhythm. Then there's the energy ball. It sounds strange until you feel it. Rub your hands together until you feel warmth, tingling, a magnetic pull. Then slowly move them apart. Imagine a sphere of light forming between your palms. This isn't imagination, it's perception. You're feeling the magnetic field generated by your own body, the energy you were never taught to trust. Focus on it. Breathe into it. With each inhale, grow the sphere. With each exhale, condense it. Let it move through your body. Scanning, healing, activating. This is not pretend. This is you reclaiming the tools your ancestors once used daily. And then there's the heart flame. Sit still. Place your hands over your chest. Close your eyes. Breathe deeply, softly. Visualize a small flame flickering at your heart center. See it, feel it, trust it. With each breath, let it grow brighter. Let it warm your chest, radiate through your ribs, expand through your limbs. Let it rise up your spine like a current of golden fire. And as it does, notice what happens to your thoughts, to your emotions, to your sense of self. You're not just calming down, you're waking up. These are not performances, they are doorways. And the more you walk through them, the more natural they become. Eventually, you won't need visualization. You'll feel the energy move with a single breath. You'll know when something resonates or repels. You'll begin to trust the language of your own frequency. That's when magic becomes more than a practice. It becomes a way of living. Because the truth is, your energy is always speaking. It's always guiding, adjusting, calling you back. And the more time you spend with it, the louder it gets. The more obvious the path becomes. Not because the world changes, but because you do. You stop trying to force outcomes. You stop chasing things that drain you. You start recognizing where your power flows and where it leaks. And suddenly, you're no longer reacting to life. You're co-creating it. This is how you light the flame, not once, not in a moment of desperation, but daily, devotedly, gently, because the flame is alive. And like all living things, it responds to love, attention, and truth. Show up for it, and it will show you a version of yourself you forgot was possible. Real magic isn't flashy. It's not about bending spoons or levitating off the ground. It's about becoming someone you barely recognize, because they were always hidden beneath the version of you the world trained you to be. You start to realize that magic isn't what you do. It's what you are when you strip away the noise, the lies, the expectations. You don't become magical by adding something new. You reveal it by letting go of everything false. When your energy is aligned, your life stops feeling random. You begin to notice the way people speak to you changes. The kind of opportunities that show up changes. You say no without guilt. You say yes with clarity. You trust yourself in a way that doesn't need to be defended. That's not just confidence, it's coherence. When the energy inside you flows cleanly, life outside you mirrors it. And this is the part no one really prepares you for. How subtle the shift feels, and yet how profoundly it reshapes everything. You wake up and the world looks the same, but it doesn't feel the same. You're not as reactive. You're not chasing validation like you used to. You stop trying to fix yourself and start meeting yourself. You start choosing people who feel like truth, not performance. You laugh more. You listened better. You breathed deeper. Nothing outside of you changed, but somehow everything did. Because now you're moving from the inside out. You're no longer operating from fear, shame, or scarcity. You're making choices that resonate instead of choices that impress. And that shift? That's what living magically means. It's not about avoiding pain or floating above the mess of life. It's about moving through it with awareness, intention, and trust. It's knowing you're connected to something bigger than your circumstances and learning how to listen to it. You begin to feel guided, not by signs in the sky, but by something quieter, more reliable, your own energy. You begin to realize that your presence is your power. And when you're fully present, you're no longer just reacting to life, you're shaping it. One breath at a time, one aligned decision at a time, magic becomes how you speak to people, how you hold space, how you breathe through chaos without becoming it, how you bring light into rooms that forgot it existed. It's in the way you trust yourself when no one else sees the vision. It's in the way you choose peace over performance, integrity over applause, alignment over approval. That's magic. And it's not always easy. In fact, it often asks more of you, because to live magically is to live truthfully, and truth demands awareness, compassion, and courage. It means seeing through illusions you once depended on. It means walking away from comfort that no longer serves, but it also means coming home to a life that feels like yours, not one you were given, one you claimed. You don't need a ritual to make your life sacred. You just need to live it with presence. You don't need a teacher to bless you with power. You just need to remember it's already yours. Magic was never meant to be a spectacle. It was meant to be your natural state. The stillness beneath the stress, the wisdom beneath the noise, the light you carry into every conversation, every choice, every moment. And once you taste that, once you experience the kind of clarity that comes from being in tune with your own energy, you'll never want to go back. Not because you're better than who you were before, but because you finally feel whole. You'll realize that magic isn't something you wait for. It's something you live. And in living it, you become the invitation for others to do the same. You weren't meant to walk this path alone. Your magic, your awakening, your shift in awareness, it doesn't stop with you. Energy doesn't work in isolation. It ripples, it radiates. And when you begin to live from the flame inside you, whether you realize it or not, you ignite something in others too. This is how real change begins. Not from institutions or systems or grand declarations, but from individual people remembering who they are and showing up in the world as something different, something unshakable, something real. You've felt it before. You've met someone who didn't say much, but their presence changed the room. You've heard someone speak and felt chills, not because of their words, but because of their frequency. That's resonance. That's the transmission of energy. And when you start to live in your magic, you become that for other people. Not by trying, just by being. This world doesn't need more information. It needs more embodiment. People don't need more theories. They need someone to remind them, through lived example, that another way of existing is possible. You don't have to convince anyone of anything. You don't have to argue or prove or persuade. All you have to do is become the clearest, most aligned version of yourself and watch what happens. You'll start to notice people leaning in, asking different questions, looking at their own lives through a new lens, not because you told them to, but because you showed them it could be done. And sometimes they won't get it. Sometimes you'll be too much for people still trying to hide from their own light. You'll feel the distance grow, the conversations fade. That's okay. You're not here to fit back into what you've outgrown. You're here to hold the door open for those who are ready to walk through. Not everyone will, and that's not your job to manage. Your job is to stay lit, to keep your flame alive, to live as proof that a life of energy, clarity, and alignment is not only real, it's contagious. Because when people see someone fully alive, it confronts everything inside them that's been dormant. It wakes up their longing, their buried knowing, their forgotten truth. That's how the collective begins to shift. not with force, but with frequency. One awakened person can affect hundreds just by presence. Imagine what happens when thousands do, millions, a generation. And that's the future we're walking toward, not one built on control, but on coherence, not on fear, but on frequency, not on blind obedience, but on embodied awareness. We don't need another system to save us. We need individuals who remember who they are and choose to live that truth out loud. That's the revolution. Quiet, daily, energetic, real. So let your light disturb the false. Let your presence remind people of what's possible. Not because you're perfect, not because you have all the answers, but because you were willing to feel, to remember, to wake up in a world that prefers sleep. And the most beautiful part? You don't need to try to change anyone. You just need to be so deeply yourself, so fully in tune with your own magic, that the illusion of limitation starts to unravel in everyone who meets you. This is how one becomes many. This is how the invisible becomes unstoppable. And this is how magic spreads. One breath, one choice, one awakened human at a time. This isn't the beginning of your magic. It's the remembering. The spark was never gone, only buried beneath years of forgetting, tucked away behind conditioning, rules, fear, and noise. And now, as you sit with this, reading these words, feeling that subtle hum in your chest, that stillness in your breath, this is it. This is the return. The flame never needed you to become anything. It only needed you to stop pretending you weren't already whole. You've spent so much of your life looking for power in all the places it was never stored. In approval, in success, in status, in becoming more of what the world celebrates. But what you were really searching for was access. Access to you, to the version of yourself untouched by distortion, to the clarity that rises when your energy is clean and your attention is anchored in truth. That's where the real magic begins, not in escape, but in embodiment. You don't have to float away to feel it. In fact, the more rooted you are in your body, your breath, and your awareness, the more the unseen world opens itself to you. You don't have to abandon your humanity to access your divinity. They were never separate. The sacred doesn't sit on mountaintops or hide in holy texts. It pulses through your veins, radiates from your chest, speaks through your intuition, and whispers in every quiet moment you've learned to ignore. And now you know. Now you feel it. The connection was never severed, only silenced. And as you begin to rebuild that connection, breath by breath, moment by moment, you become something the world rarely sees. A human who remembers, a human who feels, a human who creates not from force, but from alignment. You stop chasing things to prove your worth. You start creating from the overflow of knowing who you are. And the more you honor that, the more your reality begins to shift. Not through effort, but through energy. You find yourself moving with less resistance. You stop trying to convince anyone of anything. You become magnetic, not because you're trying to attract, but because authenticity is irresistible. That's what the flame does. It illuminates, it warms. It draws people in, not toward you, but toward the truth inside them. But don't forget, this is a path, not a finish line. Awakening is not a destination. It's a rhythm. Some days the flame will roar, other days it will flicker. That doesn't mean you've failed. It means you're alive. The key is not in avoiding the dark, but in knowing how to return to your light when it fades. That's the practice. That's the power. If you've come this far, you already feel the truth awakening inside you. Don't let this moment fade. Join Insights Academy below and access the deeper teachings we can't share here, including your free copy of the Kabbalion. So here you are, not broken, not missing anything, just standing at the edge of your own remembering. The world will still try to pull you back into noise, urgency, and numbness. But you know the way now. Back to the breath, back to the flame, back to yourself. If this video resonated with you, let us know by commenting, "I understood it."